That clarifies that. So, yeah, welcome to the bioelectric board meeting. So anybody who is joining us online, welcome. We'll go ahead and start out with approval of the agenda. Jessica, you had a modification.
Yes, I would like to remove the net metering action item under board number 5A1. Please.
Okay. Any other suggested modifications? Joel.
Could I add an update on the broadband partnerships to the executive committee session?
Noted. I think that'll be fine, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, probably the same.
Okay, nice. All right. So we got two suggested modifications to the agenda. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve it with changes.
Yeah. Okay. Seconded, moved by Cole, seconded by Joe. All in favor of accepting the agenda with the two mentioned changes? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we have an agenda. We will move into member comments and concerns. Graham, will you give us a reminder of our policy around member comments and concerns?
Yes. The board encourages comments about the cooperative from its members. The board asks that each participant's comments pertain to cooperative business. Those wanting to address the board during the public comment period are granted 5 minutes to address their topics. Lengthy comments to the board should be submitted in writing. Formal complaints must be filed in writing and submitted in compliance with applicable board policy. Comments from the public will be directed to the entire board, not to any individual. No personal attack shall be allowed. Failure to follow these requirements may cause the public comment period to be terminated. Copies of our policies and procedures on public comment and complaints are available on our website.
Thank you. So given those criteria, do we have any member comments? Looks like maybe we do have a hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Emily Frogen, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity to comment. I appreciate LPEA's pursuit of low cost and low carbon energy through the 3-pronged strategy with Tri-State. But it's my understanding that the original partial buyout is no longer an option and that we are stuck in kind of a frustrating limbo with FERC waiting on a full buyout calculation, and that both situations are really out of LPEA's control. However, I know that several other co-ops have filed to leave Tri-State without a buyout calculation confirmation, and I wanted to encourage LPEA to follow their lead. Tri-State's rates are increasing and will continue to do so as their customer base shrinks, leaving the remaining Tri-State customers footing the bill for their stranded coal assets. Additionally, while Tri-State has low carbon dedication mandates from the state, their effort and commitment towards those goals is minimal. And all the while, LPEA is really committed to new projects like Sunnyside Solar and applying for IRA funding. So while we are not exactly certain of our buyout number, whatever that number is, it is a fixed amount. For example, in United's case, if they overpay initially at their buyout, once the FERC calculations come out, they will get whatever they overpaid back, and the same would be for LPEA. As you know, we have a 2-year commitment to Tri-State after we filed to leave. So if LPEA wants to stick to its low cost, low carbon power goal, leaving Tri-State really is our best option. Our buyout number is fixed. We just don't really know the exact amount, but every month we stay with Tri-State locks us into higher costs since we are both paying Tri-State's higher rates while delaying the 2-year contractual requirement to exit. Finally, with the influx of federal and state funding, renewables has never been a cheaper option. So I want to thank LPEA for its pursuit thus far of low cost and low carbon power. And I want to encourage you all to continue that commitment by taking a serious look into renewable energy providers for LPEA and a serious look into leaving Tri-State. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily, for your participation and your comments today. Any other comments from membership? Apparently no. Okay, then we'll close that section of the agenda and move on to consent board items. Is there anything that anybody wants to remove from the consent board item agenda?
I move to accept the consent board items.
Moved and seconded. Is there
Yeah, I was gonna ask if we could pull the travel training.
attorney? Okay. Tim.
Yeah. Director expense approval and director travel and training class, let's pull those off and make sure we got them.
Okay. So we'll pull those two categories off consent board agenda. And we'll carry on with the motion to approve with those two removed, been moved and seconded. Is there anything else that needs to be addressed before we vote on the remaining consent board items? Okay, seeing nothing, all in favor of approving the consent items with two mentioned exclusions, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so those portions of consent board are approved. And we will move into.
We can pick up the two that we
Yeah. F and G. Go ahead, Rachel, since you pulled it.
Yeah, I think I just had one of the questions that came up, so, Kohler and I submitted our training request as it pertains to upcoming CREA, and they were corrected and sent back, having pulled out, I understand, like the director's stipends for the days you're in training itself. So, and then that was cited as an adjustment to policy 109.
So yeah, so the director fees, right, not the monthly stipend, the director fees. And so under policy 109 2A, as it was amended in August, the categories where directors are eligible to receive their director fees are official LPEA business, official business for an outside organization of which they're the official LPEA delegate, or travel and training to or travel to and from those official events.
And so what I didn't understand, and I guess this is just a question or something to flag, is that means that training, like, I guess, I don't know what we call it in the past, but when you go to trainings, be it all day or less, your stipends or your tuition will get covered, and you'll get your director fee for one of the two travel days. Like,
No travel days either.
okay, so basically didn't understand what this looked like on the ground, but I think what we're saying now is if you go, you don't receive your travel. Just your director fee. Your director fee, $250. So let's say you're taking 5 days off because you're going to the new orientation, the NRECA summer school. So you are taking that time off work, but you're also, and you'll get your tuition covered, and you'll get your lodging covered, but you're not getting your time covered. And so just that was, I didn't understand that's what we were agreeing to. It seems like it's a shift maybe from what we've done in the past, and just wanted to flag it for us. We don't need to discuss now. It's not on the agenda, but I guess I'd be curious if others understood that's what we were shifting, how we were going to be interpreting and applying that policy moving forward. Because it seems like it's in the face of conversations we had on Monday where we're trying to encourage training and education moving forward. So just as an example, I have to take off work, so I'm losing wages to go to the Innovation Summit, which is fine. But to do that in an extended way isn't it doesn't incentivize people to take time to do the training if they're also losing wages on the back. None of that. Just wanted to flag that because it's a timely thing that came up and I think that flagged yesterday.
Okay, thank you for that. Kirsten, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Rachel, we can check with Graham, but I don't think that's my understanding at all. I think some people don't claim their stipend for their training day just because of the privilege of being trained, but I believe if you're doing LPA work, did that policy get changed really weird and I miss it? Sorry, guys. Graham, help me, please.
So my interpretation has been from the August change, right,
Well, let's go back to the policy committee, because we had the conversation in the policy committee meeting, and that was the decision of the policy committee, is that people were getting confused, because there's a per diem, there's a stipend, and there's a director fee, and everybody was using it interchangeably. The per diem, so we clarified the definitions. Per diem is specifically for travel, training, meals, everything that you need to get to the event and why you're at the event. You get all that. Then the next was stipend. So you get your $1,000 stipend every month if you attend one official event. Is that correct?
correct.
And then the third thing was the director fees. And then during the policy committee's discussion, and we had a discussion at the board meeting, that the 250 was then, or 500, there was two different levels.
225 on 300.
Those were given, the group agreed that those should be given to the board members that have to attend officially. But if we want you to go, this is your part of your job. And my colleague will get her director fees because people voted for her to be the CRA representative. Same with Western United, same with Tri-State, but Tri-State pays your fees. So that was the agreement, and that was discussed. That part was discussed and voted on in August. Is that correct, Graham?
That's, yes.
And I think just to add to that, and Kristen, to your question, I guess what I didn't realize is what didn't get explicitly stated, at least in that board meeting, which I might have missed, again, I might have been asleep at the wheel or lost in the details, but with this, that y'all policy committee made that kind of, oh, this has been muddled, so here's what we're recommending around the director fees during training. I don't think that one got explicitly touched on, at least on what Kristen was just saying, what I understood it to be when we were looking at how we were going to interpret policy 109 as a full board.
Yeah, so I mean, understood that things can be confusing. I believe the process of revising the policy was followed very clearly, and we ended up with what I believe is a very clearly stated policy. Now, I think it was less clear before it was edited, audited, and voted on. But I believe it's very clear now, and I guess we can discuss execution of that. And honestly, I guess if there are a significant number of board members that don't think that this was clearly defined, we voted on something that people didn't know what they were voting on, then we can bring it back up. I mean, if we had a vote based on misinformation, that's a great reason to revisit something. If we voted on something and we agreed to it, we shouldn't be going back and relitigating it at this point. So what I need to know, not necessarily today, is, does this board think that was done erroneously? Tim, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So is the treasurer, I'm supposed to review all this stuff?
Yes,
Some
and you did.
Some unclear form of approval.
Yeah.
And I would just say that I think that the attempt was honest and clarified things and so forth, but it's not clear.
Okay.
And in trying to sort out even all the expense reports that came in and so forth, there's a couple of problems. One is the expense reports themselves, the templates have not been updated, right? So when you go to fill out that report, it still says you can claim stuff like this, right? So I think we have to clear that out and allow people to see that when they think there's reports, right? And I think the other piece is you have to think of it in terms of mandatory versus discretionary. That's the terminology I think used in the policy. So is this a discretionary training or travel that you are engaging in? If it's discretionary, you're not making your director fees. which used to be called per diem. So, if it's mandatory, like they just said, with Holly being the representative, the appointed representative of the CREA, or somebody, Kirsten last month was NRECA appointed delegate, that is covered as a director fee, right? The other confusing piece, I think, for a lot of people is previously there was one travel day to or from or something, and that was it, right? Currently, it's you can claim it if it's mandatory on both travel days. That's a different thing than we had before, and you claim it at the full rate, which is now $200, right? There's no half day rates. So there's a series of changes that are, I mean, we all voted on, right? And I agree with Ted, if we don't fully understand it, we should probably come back and look at it again. But, you know, once the templates are cleared up, maybe that would be helpful. I also asked that the training request template be changed so that you can have a mandatory versus discretionary column in there, and that might help as well. So just to give you a status of where
Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, and I think again, like the process, we all participated, and I guess what I feel like I can only speak for myself. I participated in that process, but I mean, sounds like there was a lot of discussion at the committee level about, oh, this is where the confusion lies. So we're gonna clarify these terms, but that didn't, it's not, the policy to me looked good. I was like, oh, yeah, those are great. It's that policy and then how you interpret are two very different things. And so maybe what wasn't clear is that how we were changing how I was looking at these words using the old understandings. And so that's how I was going to do my guidelines versus, oh, there's a whole new, this is what this looks like in application. And this is how that would affect. And again, I think I flag it not for this one instance, it's more so thinking about, I feel like we've had a lot of conversation around, Kirsten bangs on the drum a lot, and I appreciate it around, okay, let's keep training, because if you don't stay up to speed and you're not trained, that's a danger to this co-op. It's a really complex thing we're working on, and if we can't stay up to date, we're making decisions based on outdated information or inaccurate or incomplete information. So what I feel like as a board, we talk a lot about how do we incentivize and support people keeping their training skills up. And this is just kind of the opposite of that. It's one, I think, unintended, maybe. Like you're trying to clarify, which is really good, but maybe in that I'm not sure why this particular chunk it de-incentivizes training. So
yeah, and I'm behind you on that, Rachel. I was actually, when I saw Rachel's name on the innovation, I was really excited because I have not seen you go to one of those before. And I don't want to incentivize anybody to pay, because I think it's important. I've been able to get through those for many years and a lot of training that was paid for up until this one. But I don't do it for the pay, but I think it's important. So that people like Rachel can do it. I think that's pretty key to get them to whatever training there is. So I'd like to see it pop back in.
I think they're great comments, and I appreciate especially the part about sort of unintended consequences and what, you know, is one policy decision good from the standpoint of that particular policy, but how does it impact, you know, other goals that we may have or other incentives that we may want to have. So what I'm hearing here mostly is really back to education, training, incenting those activities, understanding and deciding how we want to move forward with that, more so than is our compensation policy appropriate or clear and understandable.
I have a little both and, like Tim brought up some really good points around how to clarify it structurally. And I think I also heard, maybe revisiting how we're interpreting that one section of compensation as it pertains to the, training
Yeah, travel training.
fee.
Right.
Maybe a classroom terms.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
that's a great suggestion. Yeah, I think maybe to clarify, and I'll let Tim tell me if I get it wrong, but I don't think Tim was trying to clarify the policy itself, but the procedures that comply with it. So the stuff that we have that's historical that we've been using that may not now directly reflect the terminology or even requirements of the new policy. And so I think that's something that easily can be handled, you know, sort of at an administrative level, right?
I guess, are you saying though that you'll bring it back and look at this consideration of director fees? I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
I'm not at this stage saying that we would go back and change a policy that we just revised. I honestly, and this is just my opinion from this chair, is that I would need like substantial input from this board that says we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We made a decision that we actually, exactly what I said, you know, we didn't know what we were deciding on. We didn't know the unintended consequences of that, and it needs to be revisited. So I saw it too. I saw, you know, Rachel and Kohler clearly indicate that they would like to see something along the lines of director fees for training, so that we're getting paid for non-mandatory work that we do at the co-op.
Just strong.
Do that. Dan,
Yeah. How would this scenario be handled? Say I was going up for training and going to do that. Plus, I was voted to be a delegate for the Western United meeting. Okay, so I could collect fees for the one day that meeting was held, or the total time up there.
Well, the way I would interpret it, I'd like to take a crack at this.
yeah, that's great. It's a helpful experiment.
Right? My understanding would be, you could claim travel, because you went there on official leave. And you claim the day of mandatory leave, but not anything else, in terms of director fees.
Okay.
And that's my interpretation as well.
It's in the day, but the travel day after too.
And yeah, the travel, yeah, to and from, yeah, and the day you're on official business, and if you're there on unofficial, if you have an unofficial day, that would fall under the discretionary category, and you wouldn't receive a direct fee for that day.
What about the alternates?
They're official. And specifically, the policy does say that all comes out of the budget for that entity as opposed to the budget for each individual director, right? So we're all supposed to have a budget each year that kind of line items, you know, $5,000, $3,000, whatever the number is. And so if you are going to the Western United meeting, that all comes out of the Western United bucket as opposed to the Dan Hunt. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, I think there needs to be some clarification to some of this, the policy. Maybe an addendum or some explanations.
Yeah, let's get a couple more comments. John, you ready to go?
Yeah, previous to that change in August, we were director fee compensated, even if it was under a different term, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if the, relabeling of those definitions, which is what I'm hearing, and then I guess, Tim, you saw it, you're seeing, how do we place this change? Then it seems like it would, we should look at that those corrections of definitions weren't to change or exclude or de-incentivize those areas, I believe. So if it's a part of, look at that and make sure we understand the definition of it or the interpretation of it. That wasn't to reassess LPEA's process on those director fees. It seems to me.
Well, there you have it from the chair of the policy committee that is confusing. My understanding of this was it's official that you're required to do it as part of your either, your service on the board or the board appoints you to do something, you get a director fee. And you get that for everything that you're required to do, including travel there and back. If it's optional, you don't get a director. That's the way I interpreted it, and I thought it was very clear, and I thought it was great how we got through taking some mud out of it and clearing it up. Sounds like I might have been one of the few people who's absolutely.
And I'm hearing it with a different light on it as well, that if the board approves training, it was elected, what was the discretionary, but once it's approved and funded and you're registered for it, on behalf of LPEA, is it directed at that? What's the other, not directed? Well, mandatory. So I'm hearing that in a different, path there too.
Kirsten, I see your hand. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm in the camp with John Lee and Rachel. This is not how I understood that was going to be. So let's fix it. I'm also with John when he says, hey, we used to pay for it. We didn't say anything explicitly, stop paying for it. Just because it becomes, it's been discretionary all along. We've been paying for it all along. I don't get what in that new policy says you no longer pay for discretionary meetings. There's nothing in there that says it. So I don't get why the change just because of a change in, we were trying to clarify a definition. Yes, training is discretionary. Absolutely great. And great. We're still paying for it for those who want it or who need it in order to be able to afford to go to these bloody things.
Taken, Mitchell.
Without commenting on the policy itself, I think is a follow-up item. I think it would be valuable if staff provided some guidance into the next 12 months or 24 months of various issues that we know in front of us, and provide that in the form of, hey,
John, can't hear you at all. Can't hear John at all. Sorry, sir.
Without commenting on the policy itself, my guidance, my ask is that the staff provide at least some guidance on areas of focus for training over the next 12 months. Some of the policies, some of the training that I've seen people take, while valuable in the broadest sense of the word, I think would have been higher value if they had taken training that was more pointed for some financing areas that were focused on some of the renewable areas that were focused on, in some cases, perhaps broadband, but as staff could provide some guidance on these are the categories of high value training. I think that would be allow people to make better decisions about the training that they invest in themselves.
Rachel.
Just one note, because I can see, I'm trying to understand I understand pushback because it's coming from like, well, we thought we were interpreting the policy this way, and so that's what you voted on. And right, okay, that wasn't understood. But one thing I just want to clarify, like, I don't think there's a financial implication to this ask, because these fees, I think, have always come out of just our budget, like our training, my individual line item training budgets. That's my understanding. So I guess I just put that out there to this group, to staff, and to the world, that like this is not saying like, oh, let's make another financial ask on membership. This was keeping it all within that budget. I think it's how we I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, just something
Because it's real.
Okay, any more comments? I'm gonna ask for a straw poll. Okay, I'm gonna let, Joe go.
Yeah, I'm on the committee now, I'm confused on all of this. And I thought that we did get the 125 for attendance at discretionary meetings. So my question, so the Innovation Summit, that would be a discretionary meeting, correct?
Seems like it's not required.
Even though that's something we all think is a good idea to attend. Yeah, I guess maybe we need to talk about this again because like I said, I'm confused about how this is worded out too.
Okay,
And I thought it would come from the Rachel side. I thought it just came out of, okay, here's our budget. And here, everything comes out of the budget, whether it's a director day or the meals or whatever, travel, whatever.
okay, I think we're ready to raise our hands here. Not an official vote, just a straw poll on, does the majority of this board think that this policy needs to be revisited? And really just specifically relating to this interpretation, travel and training. Yeah, John, I hear your point that there might be other things that might trigger better interpretation, good glossary of terms, that kind of thing. But this really is specifically going back to address, did we do the right thing on director fees for non-mandatory or discretionary travel and training? How many people think we should go revisit that? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like we've got a majority. So I'll work with policy committee, John, to make sure that gets on our list. And we'll do, and we bring that back. Tim, another comment?
Well, we pulled two things off
Yeah.
the agenda, and one is the requests for training that we have to approve. So I'd like to make a motion to approve those as they are in the current onboard document, not the one from a day or so ago, just to add a little more confusion to the whole thing. So I don't know if we want to put those up there or whatever, but those do not include director fees. Right. So we're approving people to go to training or innovation seminar, or whatever, without director fees expectations. So.
We have a motion.
Second.
Joe, second. Discussion on Tim's motion. And to clarify, Tim, this is just for
Just the director, just the training requests.
Yeah. Approval of training requests.
Expense approval, which is going to be the next.
Yeah, right. This is training requests. They're upcoming.
Yes.
Expense approval is passed.
You have to get approval in advance.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just for travel and training requests. Moved and seconded. There's discussion from Kirsten.
Yeah, I'm sorry, things are a little blurry audible. Can I hear the motion?
Tim, go again, please.
So I move to approve the director travel training requests in the board packet as of today that do not include director fees being paid. I think page 16 would help too. Page 16, I thank you for calling it out. I don't have that from it.
Any other questions on that? Kirsten, did that clarify for you?
I heard it. When I'll have a discussion point when we get to the vote.
We are in discussion. So it's Laura, you already want to discuss.
Was it already
Yes,
firsted and seconded? Oh, okay, sorry. So it's on the floor. So I believe you're saying approve them the way they are now without the director whatever in it. the director pay in it. And I don't have a pony, I fortunately don't have a horse in this race because I don't have an expense report that has training in it this month. So if
Well,
they are allowed to, once we clarify what was and was not changed in 109, if they're allowed to later put in for that, for those days that they put in for training, then I would agree to this, but if not, so I guess I propose an amendment that with the allowance that future amendments may be made to said expense reports to meet the spirit and intent of 109.
Then seconded by Rachel. So I guess now we've moved to the subsidiary amendment consideration.
Unless Tim, do you want to accept that amendment to the motion?
Sure.
Is that all right, Grant?
That's fine.
No second.
So the pending motion is to approve the travel and training requests as they're currently presented in the board, which excludes director fees, but with the ability for those directors to come back and subsequently receive those director fees based on forthcoming guidance from the Committee on Policies.
All clear on the motion? Is the second still in place? Joe?
Well, Rachel seconded the amendment. I seconded Tim.
Sal, your second.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and stipulated to the amendments.
Yeah, so we're not voting on the amendment at all, we just incorporated it into the motion. All right, any other discussion? We're ready to vote on that? All in favor of approving director travel and training, as stated by Tim's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, there we go, we're through, that.
So, in the expense reports submitted that are in the final meeting book or packet as of today, there is a correction. So in the summary, it doesn't include Director Landis' request for payment of her place fee, even though an expense report was submitted. So I'm going to make the motion that we approve all director expense reports, including Director Landis, that are in the board packet. So there's three of them. One for Director Skion for the NRECA regional meeting, 2546-26. Director Lucian, Tri-State local board member orientation, 806.65. And Director Landis for training, online training, I think $340. Doesn't include director fee for that. Because under current policy, it's not allowed. Same is true for director Lucian. For Director Skion, it is included because you were the brother. So that's a lot of explanation. The motion is approve those three expense reports in those documents.
Okay, and would you consider the similar amendment that Kirsten proposed on the travel and training requests?
Are you suggesting that yourself?
I am suggesting that to make it formal.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. And Rachel, was that you second? Thank you. Any discussion on that motion with the clarifications, which I hope are clarifications? Seeing no discussion, we'll vote on approving the director expense reports. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And abstentions? Okay, thank you for that. We appear to go to this.
Director Skion, could you hear me? I was trying really hard to be loud and clear. I'm just curious whether you could hear me.
When you repeated the motion, it was really clear and I wasn't getting any sort of echo. When you look at your PC, like when you were reading or something, like the last little bit you said was a little fuzzier. So it's off and on, and I know I've been texting with Drew, and I know he's working on it, trying to make it better. Maybe we could speak slower, which is, what do you think, David? You're dealing with this too, right?
Yeah, I can hear, I think, better than you can, because I've heard everything. But you know, to that point, I think the directional speaker, if they're faced one way or another, is clear, but I have been able to hear everything. So,
I'll go get a headset in.
okay.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up, because it is important that everyone is participating fully here. So, okay, so we are through consent board items and on to CEO and staff reports. Jessica, you ready for that?
I am. Drew, can you show the dashboard, please?
Yeah, sure can.
Right. David and Kirsten, can you see the slide?
No, it popped up for 1 second and then it went away.
Right on again, now that I moved it over.
Yes.
How about now?
I can
Can
see
you
it
see
now.
it now? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
can see it now.
All right, I'm going to talk loud and slow. Okay, so we'll start with our September dashboard. Yes, we have a red X. We're very sad about that one. So we have check marks for all other attributes except for system average interruption duration index, which is SAIDI, and it's for minutes. We are over our goal. Our goal was 60, we're at 70. I'll explain more, I'll have Jerry explain more. And then we are down again, cash reserves. Now again, I promise we will address this. We are currently just trying to get to the budget. But this is one that Patrick's been working very hard on a couple high priority issues that are time sensitive. And then we will come back to the board with some change recommendations for this. And again, this reports on almost just a daily number when we report the dashboard. So as of today, we're back above 12%. However, we are going to have to look at our cash reserves. As we've talked about this for probably the past couple of years, we have been trying to use as much of our cash to pay for our capital projects. When most other companies borrow money, we have not. We anticipated borrowing potentially, Patrick, about 14 million sometime this year.
14 for 2023 was
16 this year.
16 expected for 2024.
But as of right now, we have not borrowed any money, so that's a good thing. But we do need to talk to the board about a cash strategy. So instead of us just coming back with an idea of something for that, I want Patrick to actually take some time and talk to other co-ops and develop an actual cash strategy, and because it will include a borrowing strategy. So we'll come back to the board on that. But we obviously want to avoid borrowing because of the high interest rates. So maybe during those times, it's better to have a lower cash reserve, so we're not borrowing, so we're not paying the 6% or higher, because that is saving our members more money. But we are also not having a big cash reserve. So we will get to this, but I just need Patrick to focus on the budget and some other high priority issues first. Okay, so I'll move on. So I'll talk about the X when we get to that slide, if that's okay. I'll have Jerry talk. Okay, next slide. No lost time accidents or incidents. That's great news. Also 0 cyber incidents, another great check mark there. There's 2 other items under cyber, which Drew and his team are working hard on, so that's good news. Just continuing to lock down our firewalls. I'm going to jump over to the 100% department use data analytics. So he is using cloud-based internet application data analytics to go through and try to filter out potential cyber threats. So It does create a little bit more of an issue with people going to websites. But that is a good thing. I know it does kind of it stalls work productivity sometimes. So I think the balance though is that even though we stall work productivity sometimes by stopping them from going to a website, we're getting emails blocked sometimes that are actually very important emails. And that's frustrating, but when I always go to Drew, he said, I understand the frustration, but this is also cyber protection. So just keep that in mind, please. And I need to as well. I think my husband would block me emailing me, so kind of a thing. Okay, so achieve 100% regulatory compliance. We are, Jerry and his team and Elizabeth and her team are doing a fantastic job of just making sure that we continue to keep up on safety, training, education. We're at the forefront of doing that and just keeping our crews really informed of how to do their jobs in the best way possible. So that's all good news. Any questions on this page? Yes.
I listened to the podcast, the NRECA one about DMEA's cyber attack.
Yeah.
Do we have cyber insurance?
Yeah, we have a little bit, but most companies won't insure you for security. So it's actually a very difficult thing to get.
Okay.
But the point is you don't even want to get to that point. So keep in mind DMEA. I should be very careful what I say.
Yes.
We should probably talk in executive session on that issue. There are some big factors in that regard where they were not cyber mature, and that's why they were hit. So, yeah. So the point is do prevention, as much prevention as possible. And we are known within the state to be very progressive on the cyber issue, even the US. Even with the frustrations I mentioned about kind of locking us down, but that's for a good reason. So prevention is the most important thing. And then insurance is, you should never rely on insurance for anything because the insurance only pays potentially a fraction of what you would actually have to pay for some type of ransomware. So, good question, Nicole.
Yeah, so in here you mentioned the inspection of the beverage wells and sleeves. Is that an internal inspection or do you actually send it out to like Western United?
Yeah, I'll let Jerry answer that.
Yeah, we send them to Western United and they have all the equipment to diagnostically test our rubber goods.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. All right, so keep the lights on. Comply with LPEA's wildfire mitigation plan. Again, we are replacing reject poles. Now, that number is a little bit lower than what I've seen in the past, but that's also because Jerry told me we are working really hard on member jobs and construction. We're trying to get the capital projects completed before the snow falls. So that is always just we're always going to be replacing reject poles from here on out, but that one is a little bit lower from the past, but it's still on schedule. And then still doing a lot of raptor protection. In fact, I saw raptors standing on top of one of our raptor protections the other day, so it was still alive, so that's good. And then tree crews trim approximately 36 novel lines, so really still working on that. That's a high priority, obviously. We're on target to complete our budgeted capital projects, so we're at 75% now, which is great. And like I mentioned, the crews are working really hard on this to get it done as much done before the snow falls. So you will see that number continue to creep up. Okay, achieve safety targets. So we are past our goal of 60 minutes. We're in 70 minutes. I'm going to let Jerry kind of talk about why.
So we knew that we were going to surpass our goal in March, just due to the winter storms that we had. That number spiked up immediately during those months. We were hoping that it was going to be a little later in this, towards November, December when we surpassed it. But reason is capital projects. When we have those, we have planned outages that we have to do cutovers to the new lines. Those take up
a lot of, or add to this number greatly. And then we have had a terrible increase in vehicle in equipment. We're up 200% in car hit pulls this year compared to last. Distracted driving is becoming more and more common, and there must be a target on the poles because many are wrong. Just this past month, we had 3 vehicle hit poles that were doozies, and it really bumped our numbers up. So, I saw that this year is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, so we're working on comms to the public, but that's something that we can't control.
Yeah, and I would just, the other side of the whole issue is that our crews are the first on scene before fire and rescue sometimes. And I think when I first started, Jerry, I don't mean to bring this up, but you were doing CPR on somebody because Jerry was the first one at the scene, and unfortunately they passed away. But so that's the also thing we have to consider when you think about car hit pulls. Every time I hear it, that when we're like, there's now a car hit pull, I think, okay, so who's doing CPR and who do we need to talk to about trauma? You know, because it's, you know, Don would attest to. I think these are pretty bad sometimes. So anyway, so that's unfortunate. We'll be watching that. Sorry.
So that kind of brings up the thought that if they're hitting poles a lot more often, it probably puts our workers in much more danger as well if people are distracted, because they're parked right alongside the road.
That's right.
So is there extra precautions taken for that as well?
Jerry, you want to talk about what we do for that?
So we barricade anytime that we possibly can. And like at night, we have, it looks like daytime out there, with all of our flashing lights and everything. High vis, we are actually in the process of getting new vests for everybody. And they are, they're in short supply, just like everything else. And so we are ordering them a little bit at a time as they come available. But it's just like, last year, the state had an incident over 172, and they had signs, they had traffic control, they had cones, and a distracted driver drove right through everything. And killed a worker on the side of the road. It's something we talk about on a daily basis. Just keep your head on a swivel, and we do our best to mitigate it, but it's a pretty big fear of ours.
Yeah, so just to not belabor this, but I went out on an outage a couple Sundays ago during that big windstorm. And I went out, and one of the guys, it was John, he was out there and he was flagging traffic too. But he had all the cones out and the lights out, but so his truck was right in front of the crew truck. The crews were getting trees off the line, but he was out there with his high vis, just like watching everybody to make sure, and not that he could have stopped a car, but I think at least, you know, we've got double folks out there, just kind of double eyes, right? Just kind of watching. So yeah, it's awesome for us. Yeah. Jeff?
Couple things, is the 60 minutes, is that even a relevant number to use? I mean, we all know that outages are bad, we don't want outages. I mean, is that a metric that's important to keep track of? I mean, I don't think if we took that to 120 minutes, that you guys would like back off on your work. I'm just trying to
I think it's an achievable goal, and when we have 60 minutes, it allows me to really look at the trends and see, you know, what's causing these numbers to go up, what can we control, what can we mitigate, and how we can improve. I really like the 60-minute mark, and you know, if we didn't have 2 of the storms
than we did this last winter. Or if those storms, if we wouldn't have done such a good job where they were considered major event days, you know, we would still be under that number. But it really helps me, coordinate crews better, figure out where we can be more efficient.
Okay. I mean, I don't look at that number as something, it's like, oh my God, we're going over that and that's bad.
Yeah,
Because it's, a lot of it's unavoidable, so
correct.
and then the other comment is, I'm assuming we're getting to the end of the tree trimming time of year, is that true?
Jerry, said-
No, they still go, yep, our crews work year round, and, winter, we find a lot of hazard trees when snow starts to bend over, so.
I mean, as I've always said, I think, you know, kind of a year-end news release about how many miles and all that kind of stuff, would be great to, because I think that's a lot on people's minds.
And we're really starting to, build a better program for our tree trimming. We just did an AI overstory satellite imagery scan of our entire system. And so we're waiting to get the imagery and results back from that. But that is what we're gonna base the program off of. And then it's gonna give everybody a better idea of what our tree crews do. Great, that'll be the next one.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Well, not to belabor much more, but roadside incidents are starting on the emergency response side of things, starting to take the same view as roadway incidents. So a blocking position with larger apparatus, or, you know, not just person number one in a sign or a vest isn't going to stop something, and at best they're going to alert somebody that a car is coming through. But we've had to take blocking positions from the roadway to roadside stuff. So it might be something you take a look at,
Yeah.
not to do something operational for you, but just as a benefit, because these distracted driving incidents are becoming more proficient with, or, you know, prevalent. So,
And in emergency situations, you guys have been great, state patrol, law enforcement, and we have shut entire highways down, so we can get our work done.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. By the way, Amanda Anderson, now you see her in person and Patrick, sorry. But Amanda, yeah, we'll work with Amanda on a press release. Joe, I think that's a great idea. Let's write it down and just to say like, how many of our outages were tree caused? I think we can bring that up to point two.
one more question, so, member calls outages, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
not all of them
are
are necessarily memorized, and yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right, next slide, please. Okay, continue to pursue local clean power. So we did submit our letter of interest on the PACE program, and it was accepted, which is great. So we're invited to the second round. Not sure how many rounds. But it's a lot of work. I mean, Dan keeps reminding me how much work this is, because a lot of this also includes the RUS requirements. And that is a lot of federal boxes to check information. It's almost like going to a full audit again. So there's a lot of work in this. It's a lot of money, but we're going for it. So and there'll be another slide next. Goes through all the grants again, just to remind everybody. And then we'll do an update executive session on progress on the 3-pronged strategy. Okay, next slide, unless anyone has questions. Okay.
We can't really see hands, so,
Yeah, I think Drew.
yeah, if Kirsten or David have hands up, someone yell at us.
Yep, I believe they have their video turned off.
Okay.
Okay. All right, be a trusted community partner, so create training, education. We hosted another. Okay, we hosted another lunch and learn by Fort Lewis College entitled Artificial Intelligence. That was kind of cool. But also for future employment. So we continue to try to get out there I'm sorry? Okay. To not only do trainings on equipment, heat pumps, those kind of things, but also to educate students and STEM, create more STEM opportunities for our community so they get interested in this type of business. Increased self-service and communication options. There's no updates from last month. Not that we are doing anything, it's just some of these things we're working on takes a long time. There's not immediate results. So there's no results that we can report on at this time. Achieve survey to survey improvement. We are unveiling the 2023 member survey that was conducted. So we, NRECA submitted that packet to us. They had to make some corrections though. So it came to us a little bit late. So we will be packaging that up and you will get all of it this week. Yes, sir.
So we'll get all.
Everything.
But what about members? How do we? What level do we communicate in this survey results?
I will have to check with Amanda on that and look at what we've done in the past. We posted so we had we have the full report that we have never posted to the public. Because that includes detailed information we don't want to share. And then there's the information, there's like, they gave us a slides with summaries that I believe we have shared in the past. And that's where we put on our website for the public to look at.
Okay, so that sharing and some indication of when that's available on there, so we can inform, I get members asking about it.
Well, and this is a collective. This also, as you've seen, so again, NRECA has a set standard survey, and it's because they want it to be the same questions every year because it goes into a national database. Sometimes there's groupings of different questions we can ask. And so this time I said, I really want you to ask more of the DER. Are you interested in heat pumps? Are you interested in EVs? How do you feel about renewables? What do you think about renewables? Like, how would you prioritize them? That is new information, but that's the NRECA's kind of block that they added. So, and then it also includes a lot of demographic data that I think would be very interesting. All that being said, again, we'll get that to you this week, today, if not, you know.
And maybe some explanation of why a full report, what the data is in full report that we don't want to share.
Yeah.
Some things that we can, yeah, it's personal data.
It is, and Graham addressed this last year as well, so we'll pull that up, because there's some sensitive information that we should not be sharing.
Thank you.
But I do want to point out that our overall satisfaction is up. So great news, everybody. And in fact, when NREC briefed us, they said we're one of the only co-ops, or a very limited number of co-ops in the US that actually went up. They're actually seeing co-ops go down. And so they applauded us for saying, you guys were an anomaly, you went up. Yay! And also what's really great to see is look at the data in the past, because I think last year was like really low. Is that right, Elizabeth? It dipped really low, the satisfaction. But now we've gone up and we're actually in the top 3 from the last, how many years? 5, 6, 7 years? We would do I look back. Yeah. So now we're in the top 3. So we've surpassed just even a couple years ago on satisfaction. Wow.
Good.
Good news. Great news.
Yeah, everybody.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so next, there's no questions over the next. Oh, on that slide, actually, I apologize, my fault, I forgot to add my point here, which I've been trying to increase and tell you about what I'm doing in the public. That is kind of out of the ordinary. One of the things I did do is I met with the director of the Public Utilities Commission for Colorado PUC. It's Rebecca White. She's the new director. She actually came to Durango. I met with her. It was fantastic. I'm actually going to be a guest speaker for her and her staff, because she said that many of her team members are not hearing positive stories about electric utilities moving towards promoting electric vehicles, heat pumps. She actually just came back from DMEA, And DBA told her that they're not interested in electrifying and competing against natural gas. And, so I told her that we actually are promoting this because it's good for our membership. And it saves money, and it also helps meet many of our goals and objectives, and it helps a lot of our DER peak shaving plans. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna speak to her team just to give them a rah-rah, and this is, you know, we do support this, co-ops, do see a benefit in a lot of these projects and programs. So that was good. I was happy that she did that. Yes.
That made me inspired to send out a FERC insight that I received. And something that was mentioned in it was, FERC and NERC have issued a report about Winter Storm Elliott. And they're saying that almost none of the recommendations that came out of Winter Storm Uri have been implemented. So therefore, even though tri-state and there for us do not have a big natural gas exposure, I think this is something that's worth keeping an eye on, because NERC has already told us to be prepared for it. So I sent that to you. And Kirsten, if you can hear me, it's got a lovely PowerPoint thing that I thought of you when I saw it, but it's in that FERC insight. It's about Winter Storm Elliott and how they're not preparing.
Yeah, and that's why Green Mountain Power is doing their battery storage. One entity is working on that, so good point. Okay, next slide. All right, Patrick, I'll have you go through this, please.
Operating margins came in still strong for the year. For September, there was a budgeted deficit of $118,000. We were better than that by about $3,000. So that's on plan. Continue to maintain strong margins from a strong winter, basically. And then the budgeted plan was on target. Target cash reserve, Jessica's talked about. I'm digging into this. Cash is not. It's a wild beast, so to speak. If you put in capital spending, there's a lot of volatility around that, depending on when the spend happens. I'm not gonna claim to be an expert on the cash structure of how the flow happens. There's a lot of analysis I need to do on that. Timing of payments seems to be distorting this ratio some, but it's worth a really deep dive to understand the metric. I think the intent makes so much sense. You want to understand what do you need to operate the organization, what kind of cash do you have to have on hand, but it's complicated. You don't want to just be borrowing to hit a ratio when your cash on cash return would be negative in that situation. We're not going to be returning. Right now, CFC is quoting 6.15%. I wouldn't see any kind of liquid investment that's returning 6.15%. I'll tell you all if I find that, because we should all get into that. Target equity percentage, we're on target. Target long-term debt, we're on target. And our marginal debt service coverage ratio, we're on target on that as well. Looks to be hitting a strong year. Who knows what weather's going to do? But as far as September is concerned, the financial key performance indicators look good.
So I'd just like to reiterate, I don't believe that having a non-green check is bad. Okay. We have this dashboard with these indicators so that we can get an explanation for it. There are reasons for things to come outside of a norm. It's just like when Joe said, if we move safety numbers up to 120, Jerry, are you gonna rest on your laurels? Paraphrasing him. And it's a no, so if this is a shot of a day that was last week and the bill was due, then let's explain it. I think those are completely legitimate. They don't show failure or a missed mark. So if we saw all green marks, that would probably be an indication to me that we need to go back and revisit our benchmarks. Yeah, sure. Because we're not getting anywhere then. So when that's the situation in the financial environment that we're in, and it was for a day, but we're better now, so we can feel good today, but in next week it'll be back off again. As long as we have that on our, horizon, that seems good to me. So I don't want those to always be such a negative presumption.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on. Okay, prepare for the future. So again, as I mentioned, these are just a running tabulation of the grants we've already applied for and they're pending and one in progress. So this is all the same that you've seen before. The only new thing is under grants pending 4. There were 3 last month. There are now 4 this month because as I just reported, we applied for the USDA PACE grant. So that's the new one. Control 3,000 kilowatts, the DER. So again, we're at 3,100. So great news. We keep going up on that, like we've mentioned. And then development partnerships to achieve broadband goal. We're working on a broadband provider to minimize the cost of broadband expansion. So that can be discussed more in executive session. Yes, Cole.
I just want to give a couple things and kudos to the staff for these grants and stuff. You're talking about how hard the work is. But this was presented to us at Tri-State. I thought it was pretty interesting on how fierce the competition is. So OCED, and that is the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations. They reviewed 659 pre-application submissions that proposed diverse clean energy projects around the whole United States. Approximately 2.4 billion in federal funding was requested, roughly 48 times the size of DOE's $50 million solicitation. And then also the overwhelming response for the rural electric cooperatives totaled more than 2 times the $9.7 billion in grant and loan funding that Congress made available for this program. And then in May, and this is what you were talking about, the USDA made $1 billion available under PACE. So far, the USDA has received requests for more than 7.8 billion through letters of interest. So kudos to you guys, you got it across the finish line. And that's a big deal.
Thank you.
Tri-State struggling to get that done. So I thought that was important.
I appreciate
Show
it.
the amount of work you're doing.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Dan and his team because it's. I mean, I'm getting emails from 10 o'clock at night. So working on this, it's a lot. So okay, we can smile. Okay, thank you, Kohler. I appreciate that.
We should grant him some time off.
Okay, I mean, this is a slide that's not like a target initiative, but it is, we really try to promote our employees. And many of these employees went out on their own to get their certifications with assistance from us, but Elizabeth and her team are really doing work to help the culture at the company and really celebrate employees that go the extra mile to get additional certifications and training. So we had a nice event for them and these great certificates. So nice. That is all. That concludes my presentation. Any questions? She was saying, yeah, she's so there. Yeah. Any other questions?
Anything with the appendix, or you can
Yeah,
say?
any questions you have?
I just had one question, let me see, prepare for the future. Cumulative beneficial electric sales, it says at the bottom, DMV reports. I didn't see that DMV.
Yeah, great question. Dan, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so the best way for us to track the number of electric vehicles that we have on our system is using the VMV data, our motor data. So that's all that's about right there.
Yeah, because I always ask, like, where are we reporting 2 months ago? Because we should be reporting September's. And Dan said, well, it's actually because we're relying on the DMV reports and they are back 2 months basically. So that's why.
I thought that was some electrical term that I hadn't had.
No, sorry.
Yes, we should still got acronyms.
I believe it was the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Really?
Think it's nothing. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jessica. Moving on to the next agenda section, board action. First item in there is Finance and Audit Committee update, just with the clarification that A1 with net metering is removed from the agenda. So Tim, you want to take it away for Finance and Audit?
Sure, the report is in there. There is one correction in that report. I misstated in the recommendation around the budget, the number, the total capital items, projects budget should be about 33 million rather than 30 million. Just note that's on page, mine says page 50, but a couple days old. I'm not sure if it's still the right page number for my FAC meeting report. I think that recommendation will be, I'm not quite sure, should we take that now? Or should we take that? That has to do with the budget. I guess we took that up in Cal, is it up here, or we take that up in November?
I don't know, yeah, I mean, we got it in Cal, right?
Yes.
And so unless we need action on it, I don't think we.
I don't think you're anticipating any action.
We were,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I'm understanding, but just as an FYI, correction on the total budget. And yeah, a lot of this we covered in the Cal because it was an executive session at the FEC. So any questions? Okay. That's it.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tim.
I'm just curious, because why are we pulling that meeting?
Good night.
Yeah, please, yeah.
So I am still working with the solar installers. And we are going back and forth on ideas. We're co-collaborating. Great thought. And so I did not hear back from them, and I want to give them more time. So I'm setting up a meeting hopefully next week to meet with them to go over what we're trying to collectively agree on. And then I would rather come to the board with a collective agreement. And I'll preface this that not everybody's going to be happy. But that's probably a good collaboration then. So hopefully we can live with something in the middle.
Okay, so no better perhaps.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I might just add to that comment, you know, that this net metering tariff came in front of the board, what, 2 months ago, maybe even 3. And it was, you know, sort of out of FAC, and it was sort of assumed that you know, we were there. Obviously expected discussion at the board level, but largely because of that discussion at the board level, it was clear that we weren't there. And huge kudos to the board members who made that clear, and then also to staff and to the Finance and Audit Committee for really being willing to hear that, step back, and sort of take some recommended actions. And I think, as you said, Jessica, that's exactly where this process is right now. More community collaboration was suggested multiple times through the process. And I'm just happy that was heard and that it's being taken care of. And that the goal now is not that everybody's happy, right? We're making deals here. You can't, you know, we want this group to be happy. It's our decision on, you know, what we finally implement in this tariff. But to hear that input is really important, and to be somewhat patient to the extent that we can also is important. So thank you, Jessica, and everybody else for hearing that, doing that.
Joe, are we under any sort of deadline for this? Anything under the gun, or is this something that could?
We are.
In the next year.
So there's no deadline, but if we are going to make tariff changes in January, which I think we'd like to roll it into one tariff change. Because then that less changes for our membership.
So it's got to go to tri-state.
No, it's a tariff change, which means that we just have to give 30-day notice, which we already did. We accepted public comment, which we already did. So if the board voted on it, we could have implemented it like November 1st, which was the original plan, but we're now delaying it. And then, but what we'd like to do is try to shoot for getting it in the January tariff change. If tri-state is going to change, but regardless, try to get it done January 1st. And, you know, the solar installers have said the same, they'd like more certainty. So they would like some of this, because there's some great benefits in there about aggregated net solar. I said that wrong, aggregated solar, net metering, thank you. So there's some things that are a benefit to them that they'd like to see get done sooner than later.
So we really need to pass this in our December meeting.
Yes. But just to November or December, right?
We're close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just to reiterate, you know, I appreciated the process and people's patience in speaking out. I think staff heard and learned a lot from it, and we can learn to do it different in the future. And I did appreciate talking to many board members about this and hearing about the desire for more collaboration. And I support that and appreciate that, because these are the experts in the community. And it is helpful to get them at the table to be a partner at the beginning. So I'm working to do that in the future as well. And hearing Kirsten and Rachel bring this up before about how do we engage more of the community. This is a great benefit, what we're doing right now. I've learned a lot, and it's been a really good process. And again, thank you, because we paused it, we heard, and now we're making changes. So thank you. And we won't do that for everything. But we will do it for items that there are definitely professionals in our community that can help educate us. So.
Yeah, and not only the process comments, but also, you know, technical expertise within this group. You know, people have information that they can add and share, and they may not be on policies or finance and audit committee, and that doesn't mean that they should be excluded from adding, you know, expertise to the discussion.
Exactly.
One other comment to Joe's comment about timeline. I mean, this does have financial implications, right? So sort of everyday decisions are being made based on the current tariff that are plus minus for the organization, right? And a change to that tariff will change that plus minus somewhat. So if there's something we can do better, the quicker we do it, the more better it is, I guess, to say it in a very non-smooth fashion. But there is that impetus to get it done. Anything else from finance and audit then?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Anything for Tim, or moving on to committee on policies? John Lee, I'll let you take over.
All the directors should have policy 108, disclosure of cooperative information, out in one of 3 different formats on your email or comment. Committee on policy meets next week. We'll take those comments in what fashion you have it, whether it's, you know, notes and rescanned on a PDF or an email, or the red line, which is, you know, I don't know that it's preferred, but it's very succinct in its flow, and you can see that there are other people putting comments in there. So it might help you with your efficiency on it. And we'll be taking those through Monday morning.
Thanks, John. And yeah, my comment on that is be involved, please. You know, I get it. It's a bit, maybe a little bit behind the scenes, but it's available. And even if you do nothing more than log in, look at the document and see what other directors' comments are, you'll be much more up to speed on the process and the recommendations that COP is coming out with. And then there will be a new recommendation that comes out after we review all those comments, right, John?
Correct. That we'll have then the committee's roll up of that, and that will come out prior to next board meetings, full board meeting, in anticipation of us accepting it. So for November.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And if you want to know what Committee on Policies is doing, keep your eye on the agenda because it gets posted, and there are those heads up out there. Anything else for Committee on Policy? Questions? Moving on. All right. Item C under board action, third party approval for election support. Maybe Graham's gonna drive that.
Yeah, Drew, could you, put the resolution 23-12 on the table?
Yep.
So as the board will recall, we set our annual meeting for next year. We've got that date set. So our next step in the process is to appoint an independent third party. In the last several years, we've used the LaPlata County Clerk, Tiffany Lee, in her office, and personally, I think it's been really successful. There's been a lot of confidence in our election from what I can gather through Tiffany's office and through our election supervisory committee because of this. So I would recommend that we do the same again this year. We did sort of schedule our meeting and election to accommodate Tiffany's schedule because she has a very busy schedule between local and primary elections in the spring, so we picked that date and everything.
All right, resolution, Dan.
I move to approve 2023-12 resolution. Presented.
Seconded by Tim, been moved and second to approve 2023-12. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, then resolution 2023-12 is passed. Thank you. Next item. We've done third party appointment resolution, that we just did that one, right?
So it would be the PURPA determination, just sort of, on a time check, and we have Matt coming up soon.
10 minutes, yeah.
So if we want to keep pushing through. Break that.
Everybody need a break before we get into Matt and executive session. Okay, then, thank you for the time check, Graham. Let's go ahead and.
Yeah, just say we have, by consensus, we adjust our agenda to move the PURPA determination until after we've had Matt appear to accommodate Matt's schedule. Do we have any objection to that? Okay, seeing no objections, we'll just do that.
Yeah, we'll move that piece of the agenda. So break time, 10 minutes. Yeah, we're back in session and we have attorney report coming up. From the cool down.
Okay, is Matt on? If not, we can actually. So I also asked Matt to kind of report on some specific items. So I sent him a list. So Matt, if you can start on what you can talk about publicly, that'd be helpful.
That sounds good. Apologies, I was having a little issue with the Zoom link. So three kind of key updates. I'll kind of talk through them here, and then in the executive session, I think we can go into some of the if-then and variables with these different things. Let's start with Adams County. The non-utility members, so Mieko, Olson's, etc., had brought a motion to have the judge reconsider its findings that the addition of the non-utility members was inconsistent with the bylaws of Tri-State. That motion was denied, and our understanding is that case is going to trial. So that's the first update. As far as I know, there is not a trial date. The last thing I heard was maybe early next year was a possibility, but I don't have that on any kind of.
Can I just add on that point, Matt, real fast? So I spoke to United on this, and I think that this was already brought up, and I think Kohler brought this up before too, but just to reiterate, their settlement negotiations were not successful. So that's why they're going to trial now. And it's only on a couple items. Is that correct, Matt? It was just on basically, one of the items is a breach of contract. Is that correct? Because United asked for a formal number to exit. And that was not formally provided by Tri-State, so as my understanding, that's the breach of contract. And Graham and I actually recently spoke to the attorneys working on this.
Yeah,
This gives more context.
yeah, we spoke with United's attorneys on that claim and
We can give more details in executive session, but just to let folks know, we do have more information on that we'll pause to give later. Just want to give that just a little more context. Okay, sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. So that's the first update. Second update, you will recall from quite a while ago, there was a stated rate settlement. There were issues reserved with regard to that settlement. This is all at FERC now. And that case went through a hearing. FERC then considered the ALJ's order, made some changes. Some of the changes would implicate the rate case, which we're going to talk about next. NRPPD had filed a motion to have FERC reconsider those findings. That was denied by operation of law. So what that means is if FERC doesn't make a finding within a certain number of days, the motion is being denied. So that is where it sits now. FERC can, at a future date, take that up. Typically, they don't do that, but sometimes, as you'll recall, in some of the other cases we've had, they do issue an order even after the denial by operation of law. So I will stop there. Any questions on that? All right, so with regard to the rate case that's pending at FERC, there has not been any decision issued by FERC. There's an upcoming call that has been structured.
Matt, can you speak up a bit, please?
Sorry.
Can you speak up, Matt, please?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
So so what I was saying, apologies, was that on Friday, there's going to be a call between FERC staff and Tri-State as to what the next steps are on that rate case. There's been no order that's issued in that rate case. So that call is going to be happening on Friday. We can talk a little bit more about what that means in executive session. I prefer to not discuss it. And Jessica, we can also talk about some of the variables with that case based on that call, also in executive session.
And Matt, can you be a little more clear about the rate case? There's lots of rate cases, I think. So which one are you referring to specifically?
So that's the one that Tri-State recently filed at the beginning of the summer to implement rates effective January 1 of 2024. So it's that case coming out of the rate committee, led to the rate case filing. It's in that case.
So there's discussion between FERC and Tri-State on that case. Upcoming, hopefully that will provide some determination as to whether or not that rate will be accepted or rejected. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions from public section for Matt? Okay, I don't see any. The next item on the agenda is to go into executive session. Tim,
Maybe Matt, you could just, for public consumption, this gets recorded so people come back and look at it. Is there anything about the CTP?
There is not. There's not an update at this time, but thanks for flagging that, Tim. That case remains fully briefed in front of FERC. There have been letters sent to FERC asking for a decision by elected officials, by certain cooperatives. And the responses that have come back to those letters from a public perspective have just been that they can't respond to them because it's a pending matter, but there's been no decisions at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the clarification. I take a motion to go into executive session at this point. John Mitchell, Rachel second. All in favor of moving into executive session?
And just quickly, Matt, we have some parameters on what Kohler should and shouldn't participate in. Is there any part of your update that he can participate in executive session?
I think we're going to be talking mostly about the rate case, and I do not think you should participate in that discussion just to avoid creating any potential issues for him.
Did he say?
I think that Matt's entirety,
So,
we have other subject matters, so.
Yeah, so we'll get through Matt's portion, which he's suggesting that you should excuse yourself for Kohler, and then we have some other topics that will in executive session that we'll bring you back for. So it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we will move into executive session. David and Kirsten, jump on the other link.
my office, so they're gonna. Yeah.
Important for me to say, there are no more executive session. So we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is coincident with lunch. We have a guest speaker, Ethan McGinnis, and go ahead and provide Ethan's introduction.
Introduce today Ethan McGinnis. He is the Colorado representative for the NRECA Youth Leadership Council. And he's representing LPEA next year in March. And he'll be representing our organization at the Power Exchange. And today he is speaking to the board to audition to become the national speaker at the Power Exchange. So thank you for having him and welcome, Ethan.
First and foremost, I want to thank you all for your time and allowing me to speak here today. I'm here to speak on the value of leadership and co-ops in today's world. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man at his time plays many parts. William Shakespeare. I was 8 years old when I joined the Durango Arts Center's youth theater company. I found a passion for something as simple as a platform with 2 curtains, but as complex as the hardback novels on my bookshelf. There was solace in a place where I could leave everything at the door and fully embrace another persona. During my years on the stage, I learned so much more than what the script dictated. The skills I learned shaped me into the person I am today. I learned that being early is on time and on time is late, and to respect not just my peers or the adults I interacted with, but my environment and the world at large. I learned to embrace the grunt work. I could be found in the house of the theater long after the curtains had closed, picking up trash and straightening chairs. Many of my fellow actors, who I met at just 8 years old, remain to this day some of my closest friends. It's that spirit of community and cooperation that bonded me with my fellow actors, working together for a common purpose. That is the co-op way. It's so much more than just business. It's about caring for the community, working together to solve the problems of our world, and leading the charge into the future. I spoke forward and took advantage of the opportunities at the Durango Arts Center, landing some major roles. Tommy Giles, the Music Man, Simba in The Lion King. These roles allowed me to grow, pushing my comfort zone and requiring many, many late nights singing to hit the note just right. I also landed some other roles like Mrs. Deborah Franklin. Roles such as these imparted important skills such as humility and learning to walk in high heels. One of my more intricate roles was Ural the Turtle in the show Seussical the Musical. Yes, believe it. Not because of the character, but because I was running the sound system on a very old laptop through a remote desktop connection as our technical director left 1 week before the production opened. Just imagine queuing up the next song while simultaneously throwing on a lengthy curly wig. Had it not been for technology, this simply would have been impossible. Power and technology comes in all shapes and sizes. It not only allows us to simplify our life, but enables us to create a more efficient one. My real passion, though, wasn't on stage. I found it in the booth, running the sound and lights. With the press of a button, I could cast light where there was darkness. And with the movement of a fader, I could bring an actor's voice into focus. Had it not been the electricity powering the light board or the electric current coursing through the soundboard, simply none of this would be possible. Power takes such a fundamentally important role in our lives, we sometimes take for granted how integral it is to our world. At Durango High School, opportunities to get involved are abundant. At the kickoff of my junior year of high school, I was inducted into the school's chapter of National Honor Society. The past year and a half of my time in high school, I've tutored and interacted with many of my fellow students, helping them to reach their academic potential. As a member of National Honor Society, I've come to recognize the tremendous value of giving back to a community through volunteerism. I've learned that leadership isn't just about leading, it's so much bigger than that. It's about kindness, compassion, and involvement. It's also about mentoring others to be the best that they can be. In my role as a student stage manager at the Durango Arts Center, or as a member of National Honor Society, I've worked closely with many of the youth to meet their goals. Seeing their face light up when I know their name and interacting with them, that's what leadership is. It's a connection with other people that I think is more valuable than anything in the world. Power, it exists all around us. It's in the phone in our pockets, the computers on our desk, and on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Taking advantage of opportunities presented to oneself and working to lead and innovate within these roles can allow for monumentous success and fulfillment. Making a direct and personal connection with the people you interact with in these roles allows for a greater sense of community to be built. The Washington, D.C. Youth Tour offered another opportunity for leadership. Being able to interact with lawmakers and experience history on every street corner was truly enriching. It gave me the chance to learn about the history of the co-op and electric industry and its influential role in the modern era. I was already interested in pursuing a path in the field of political science, but being there at the center stage of it all tectonically shifted my career focus. As I enter the stage of adulthood, I want to be at the soundboard of life, shedding light and giving voice to the many. What better place than on the stage of politics and public service, where solutions can come into focus with a strong voice and an even stronger will. I want to end today by thanking Jessica Matlock, the LPEA Board of Directors, LPEA staff, CREA and NRECA for your support over the past several months and your support of the Washington, D.C. Youth Tour. Today's youth are powering the way forward in our world, and the Washington, D.C. Youth Tour plays such an important part in what our country will look like in years to come. Thank you.
Well done, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, and thank you for representing us so well at CREA and in Washington, D.C. We just heard such great things, and we know that your peers have voted you, right, to be the leader. So that was really exciting and pretty spectacular to be selected for that. So,
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Yeah.
so you say that this is now your future. So what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Are you gonna see me a politician?
Speaker of the House.
Yeah, I hope to pursue a degree in political science. I'm currently applying to a variety of different schools here in Colorado and in Washington, D.C.
Great.
The youth tour really opened my eyes to, what an incredible place D.C. is and all the opportunities it can offer.
That's great. Well, and there's an internship program, because I'm sure you told you about in the Senate and House sides. Right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good.
What's your next role? And a play in town.
Oh, yes. It's been a while since I've acted on the stage. My most recent one was Bill Sykes and Oliver. But now a lot of my work is more running the sound and light boards at the shows at the Durango Arts Center. So later this week I'll actually be back there running the show, running the sound and lights for a improv show that'll be playing there.
Well, we'll try to keep the electricity flowing.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, let's crank back up. We did agree to leave behind one agenda item, so we're gonna loop back to, the PURPA resolution. If your mouth is not full, Graham.
Yep, so Drew, if you could pull up that resolution.
Yep, I'm gonna do it right now.
He is. That was the plan.
All right, so if you'll all recall, from back in, February, March, we had closed our public comment period on these, 2 PURPA determinations that we are supposed to make, on demand response, actions and policies and, electric vehicle actions and policies. We packaged up that information and provided it to the board. At that time, we had effectively a paper hearing. We did have one comment that was related to solar interconnectivity, which really isn't either demand response practice or vehicle practice, but nevertheless, it was circulated. The board has had the opportunity to do that. And so now it's time for the board to make a determination on whether or not to adopt these PURPA recommendations. It is staff's recommendation that you do adopt them as attached. If you could scroll down, you'll see that this is the actual recommendations that we're going through, and basically it identifies, as you can see here in like paragraph number 7, you know, we've had a demand response program since 1989. Some of this, I will say, especially for the demand response, right, we are not a vertically integrated utility, right? So we don't generate our own electricity, so we don't have a lot of ability to incentivize or curtail our members' use directly, right? We have, instead of all requirements contracts, the flip side of which is that whatever we need, they have to provide. But nevertheless, we still feel like at our level of regulation by PURPA, we are addressing both of these issues quite proactively. Like the demand response programs existing for over 30 years, and I believe if you sort of look and ask around the state, that we are one of the electric utilities that's really prioritizing vehicle electrification, not just in our home charging and public charging facilities that we've facilitated, but also in our electric school bus program and other, we have other programs. I think you've seen that there's a regional transportation bus electrification project that we're working on. So I think across and wide spectrum, we're really trying to drive these 2 policies as well as a non-vertically integrated utility can. Any questions?
Resolution 2023-13.
All right, move to approve. Is there a second? We can attach that once it's open. Yeah, seconded. Joe. Discussion.
Yeah, the only thing I had, I think we're doing obviously a really good job with encouraging electrification, looking at our beneficial electrification, far exceeding our goals even. About our electric vehicle charging program, I think it's kind of weird that we don't give people chargers until they have proof of purchase. Is there like a policy thing? Because then you don't actually get it till after you get the car. And so people end up having to buy their own anyways, because most people feel comfortable coming home with it knowing yeah.
Not 100% sure about that because of my personal experience, right? When I had, and some of it I think is your like how as retail electric vehicles become more available, right? You will presumably soon be able to go to a lot and buy a car that day. A lot of electric vehicles are pre-ordered currently, and so you can sort of get things in place ahead of time. I know that for my own personal vehicle, I got the charger from LPEA about when I said, here's my delivery date, right? Here's some proof that I've paid my deposit, here's proof that I'm under contract and the vehicle's going to be delivered on this date. That was proof of purchase enough that LPEA was able to deliver it. But I also think that part of that answer is our deal with ChargePoint that provides those chargers right in. It's like Dan's got some to say.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been working on with the auto dealers, I'd love to have our energy system. They go buy it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we've been talking to them about, so that it's there, the package, it's all ready to go. So customer, all it takes is a 220 volt out. Right. So that can be pre-wired. They can get applied with a rebate for that today without proof purchase. So that's they have to be pre-wired and very low lift to get a charge.
Well, I'm in the process of getting one, and that's been my holdup. Is that, when I've been emailing back and forth with LPA, they said I can't get it by the proof of purchase, and then the dealer said I can't have a proof of purchase, so we paid our maybe balance. So it didn't matter that we'd already paid the deposit. So I just thought, from my experience, I was like, I think this is a weird policy.
Well, as far as not this policy,
Yeah.
but our charge point.
But yeah, we don't want to hand out too many charges and we're a promise that somebody's going to get a vehicle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's, I think we're kind of constantly working on that system. I know Emily spends a lot of time and effort to administer that the right way.
COLA. Yeah, in here it mentions the watt watcher, and I haven't heard that for years. And I wonder if that might not be confusing. I actually went on our website and searched for watt watcher, and it never popped up anything. I think most people refer to it as time of use. So I don't know where this decision paper goes, but if it's going out to the public, maybe there should be thought on using the watt watcher there. That name. Just because I think it could be confusing.
Seems like a fair question. I'm not as familiar with it as you are, but I believe the same thing, that it's a term of the past.
I think we'll clarify that. I saw that too, and I was like, sure. Yeah, no, I think maybe when Graham wrote this, his point was in 1989, that's what it started at, and then it changed to the time of use. So we'll just clarify that.
Yeah, and it goes on further saying they're still enrolled in that program.
Yeah,
That's why.
That's great. Well, we can clarify that.
And I see David's hand up.
Yeah, just getting back to the electric vehicle chargers, I just want to commend Emily on y'all staff. I did get a Bolt EUV. Nicole, my issue was Chevrolet provides the 50 amp outlet for free, so I was waiting on the electrician to get the 50 amp. Then they put in the charger the same day, but I can understand your frustration. You'll have to trickle charge until you get the charger. But mine was a seamless, and I just want to give kudos to Emily. And I think Dan looked at it, my pad mount in front of the house had enough capacity for it. So it worked out fine for me, but I can understand where Nicole's coming from. Thank you.
Mine was just a clarifying question about what is, sorry, I'm trying to find my notes. There was a term, something about flexibility. There's a new term. I've too many things open. It's in this purpose statement, the first part, not about EV, demand flexibility. What is that? We talked a lot about demand response, but I didn't know what, just understanding it. What is that?
Where was that? So it's in the PURPA. If you scroll, should scroll up a little bit. I think,
Okay, well, if you don't know what that term means.
Is it a term or was it just?
It's yeah, it's to make, we're supposed to promote demand response and demand flexibility programs for high usage periods.
So that was in the PURPA.
Yeah, it's just.
That was a very old law.
Okay.
So I think it's an outdated.
Not like a new.
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I can look into it and get an answer.
Sounds like
Pretty sure it was, yeah, knowing PURPA. Yeah.
Any other discussion on whether or not we should adopt this resolution? Been moved and seconded. All right, all in favor of adopting, I lost the number, of here's resolution 2023-13, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. We're through that. We're jumping down the agenda to after executive session, and that puts us into the report section. We can start with attorney report.
Just refer everyone to my written report. And take the questions.
Anybody have questions for Graham based on his report? Okay, Graham's off the hook. Board reports. Director report. Looks like we're doing roundup first.
Yes.
Okay, David, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Nicole did a great job doing the synopsis. It's in your package of the Roundup grants. So it's in there for the Roundup grants, the educational grants. So it explains it in detail. And then you go to the Excel spreadsheet, which Nicole did. I thank you very much, Nicole, again. And that shows you how we proposed award is how we awarded it. So we did move some stuff around. And is there any questions on the report outs on those? All righty, thank you.
Yeah, no hands.
Thank you guys for including a sentence about what the grants are for.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Joe. Next one down the list is Tri-State and Kohler's report.
Okay, so one of the things that Tri-State has looked at, the board has, is the affiliations that Tri-State is with. And we found that we have over 40 affiliations. So what we're doing is we're looking at that and seeing if it makes sense to still be affiliated with them, what the cost is, what the cost is. And so what we've been doing in external affairs is we've been getting representatives from these different affiliates to present to us. This month we had it from Western United, which is much like the report that David gave. Ray Mordini came down and gave the presentation. He's the CEO there. That was pretty standard. The other one is for what we talked about last month a little bit, and that is the Western States Power Corporation. Tim, you asked some questions about that. I just wanted to point out that in our board docs, there is a presentation for that. And it's a good presentation. I think you can answer a lot of questions for you on what that was. I did ask some questions of the presenter as well as, I don't know if any of you, I know Kirsten would know him, but there's a gentleman named Thane Mickey. He's a representative from Portugal. And when this first got started in 1995, he was not a founder, but he was asked to join it. So I sat down with him and talked to him about it. And he thinks this is the only one that is working in the United States. There's not another like this that's doing it. And he said it was huge at the time because things just weren't progressing. And it was actually putting pressure on the liability. Because they're waiting for the appropriations from wherever they come from, and they weren't getting it. So they put this in place. And when you look at that presentation, you'll see that in the first year, I think the request was 1.5 million. This year it's 120 million. So it is big that they do. And one of the things he said that's really, really important, because you ask why would they do it? They make all the members, the group whole, they get paid an interest plus a kind of a filing fee, and they get that back the next month in a bill of credit. So it's a very short-term loan. But the other thing is that, and mostly Thane mentioned this, is it gives a lot of leverage to what the government, these agencies do. Because they'll come forward and say, listen, we need to get this going, and this group will vote and say, no, we don't like it that way, and we do it this way, and we can agree with it. So it gives them a lot of leverage. So you might look at that presentation, and yeah, I saw the link, I looked at one last. No, we do link. Is the same one or not, but, you know, I guess. On further thinking that through, and based on our discussion last one. It just seems like, in this case, Tri-State and the other members are acting like a bank. They're basically fronting money to a government agency, then pays them back. Sounds like that interest, right? With an application fee. I mean, is the role of a co-op like this to be a bank? Somehow this just doesn't sound right. It doesn't fit. It's not our business to be lending money. We don't do that. We go to a bank here for on-bill financing. And let the bank handle that, because that's their competency. Anyway, I just provided this feedback. I'm not trying to make a big issue out of it, but it just seems like it's a Band-Aid that has become like an extra appendage or something, you know? And not really the wheelhouse. So the 20 million or whatever that goes in there, there's a cash flow that the Tri-State, we as members, kind of finance. I don't know. It just seems like it's not the wheelhouse. But that's just feedback. And I think that's fine. I think that's good. And again, we can ask Dwayne when he comes next month if you want to, because he can fill you in further on some of the advantages of it. But I do think if they weren't doing this, a lot of these projects would really be held up. And that creates, again, what they're talking about. Couldn't they do that through a bank? Couldn't they guarantee a fund source collaborative with the bank? I don't know, because I don't really understand how the government works. It just seems it seems kind of crazy. You only do it for a month, you know. And and one of the questions I had as well, how do they get paid back? I mean, how does this money, does it come from the government? Some of it doesn't, and it goes right into the rates. So there's still some confusion I have on exactly. Yeah, I thought you'd like to see the presentation. I appreciate that. Another comment is that I've had several people, and Jessica mentioned this as well, the executive sessions at Tri-State are very, very long. And that kind of puts some doubt what's going on in that. Well, we have two things that we did settle out that will come short, and that is the auditors. We did switch auditors to Deloitte. And we had EY before, and that was a 50-year relationship. So it took a lot of work to see if we want to do a change on that. That took a lot of time. And the other one was also for the new ERA applications. I mentioned to you about how fierce that was, but we had to do a lot of work on exactly what we're going to request, exactly what we wanted it for, and what would we do when we got it. What would we do if it didn't come in? It's pretty critical for the financial position that Tri-State's in right now. This could make a huge difference. So, and the only other thing I'll mention, because I think some of you know Lonnie Tucker. Lonnie Tucker worked here. He went to Tri-State. He's no longer with Tri-State. Now he's working with the New Mexico State by doing communications for them. So.
Did he move down there? Do you know?
He is going to move down there, yes. He was our first video guy. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, back before Mike the Owl.
Oh, Mike. It's Mike.
Okay. Yeah.
Fuller, I missed the name.
Lonnie
I missed the
Tucker.
name.
Lonnie.
One more time.
Tucker. Lonnie Tucker.
Okay, thank you. Got it. Okay.
George Paul.
Following up on a couple of things you said, so you mentioned how critical the ERA program, hopefully successful application and award are to the financial position.
Sure.
Can you share more about it? Well, okay, one question I have is I was reading a report and the quote was, although the program is already oversubscribed, we hope to move forward. But does that mean the money's already given out, but
The money hasn't been given out, it's just like what we talked about earlier,
More asked.
the application has been put in.
Yeah.
Now it has to be accepted to take the next step, which, we were successful in LPA. We don't know what the price is. The over prescription is that all the GATs and all the, because this is what they want. I put it in and it's more than double what the funding is.
Pretty standard.
It is pretty standard. It's gonna be quite challenging, but
Can you share more on like plan B? If it's not? If it's, like you mentioned, it's pretty critical. So if this doesn't come through,
maybe. I'm not too sure that I can. I'm kind of in a tight spot, so I'm mostly in the public here. I think I better not. Anything else?
I was really super
Got it, read Holly, because I don't think people can, Michael.
I'm just making a comment or two. I was really super excited to see that you guys approved the DER MS platform. And I think that's a critical step for Tri-State and their plans going forward. So I was super excited by that. I was also curious, what's a level 2 reliability metric? What kind of a scale is that? Do you have any idea?
I don't. And we talked about a little bit, but not to depth, so I'll find out for you.
No, I'm just curious.
I thought that's interesting. But on your first comment, I think Red Rudolph has done a tremendous amount to push things that direction.
Oh, yeah.
Put these programs down.
For sure.
And I think Dan and Jessica too, even get guidelines for hair. Which is
Yeah.
way ahead of a lot of the others. It's helpful.
Absolutely. I was excited by that.
Good.
Oh, yeah. One last question. Somewhere along the line, I'm pretty sure that I read what Tri-State's preferred scenario is in their ERP phase 2 scenarios. Do you know where I can find the description of that?
No, but I'll find out.
I appreciate it, sir.
Make a note.
Thank you.
Anything else regarding Tri-State Fork Holder? Rachel has one.
well, maybe this goes on John's list of requested training resources. Or maybe it's not in the essentials, but somewhere. I know we've had so many trainings on what the heck an RTO is. If there's like an article anyone has that sums it up, I still don't quite understand the advantage there. So, yeah, there's a note on here about it, the exciting launch in 2026. So I'm like, oh, right. I know that's good, but I can't remember why. Yeah, I with that question. You gave a really good answer this morning. So,
And I can find a presentation that's a year or two old that might be helpful.
Yeah.
For
I know we've seen it.
we had it presented at Tri-State, so I'll see if I can
Thank you.
find that presentation. Okay.
So the idea.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll share with the whole board. Do that.
Good deal. Thank you. Next report, fast track, if there's anything additional.
I submitted my usual written report, there's all my reports had an error this one, so I apologize. And good reading attention, but I indicated that we met on Monday, August 14th. And for this report, it was actually Tuesday, 9/19, September 19th, so other than that, report stands as given. If anyone has questions, I'll be happy to try and answer.
Rachel has one.
There was a note about kind of some curing or corrections being made to the federal fabric map about over-reporting of coverage or under.
So
Yeah.
the fabric map was a nationwide effort to identify underserved locations. And it's a fairly big project, and at the end, those who have participated, like Fast Track and others, had the opportunity to for their service territory to comment on whether things were accurate. And Fast Track made suggestion of a lot of I think it was 40 or something like that, corrections to their service territory. Because the national fabric map draft indicated that those were not served, and yet FastTrack had service into those locations. So the net result of that could be an overbuilding of capacity, which could be detrimental to an ISP like FastTrack if another company gets funded, some grant funding, to build something into a location that's technically underserved, under the map, but really isn't. Now that erodes both of the ISP's business.
Awesome, and that, so I'm just trying to follow up on one older piece of information. I remember you chatting a few years ago about how inaccurate that map was, and because of, and then it somehow really with how the FCC contracts and funding are awarded, that map is a tool. So it sounds like this is a process to correct that map as a whole, and it has many benefits. But is that, are we one?
Yeah, I mean that's a largely accurate statement, that there are multiple maps and efforts that have been done over the years, both at federal and state level. This was an attempt initiated a couple of years ago. I think it came out of the experience of the pandemic, to get a much better map and really focusing on underserved locations so that subsequent grant funding could be targeted to those. Somebody didn't necessarily have to prove there was an underserved location because the map language telling what there was, right? So it's an attempt to improve that process. We'll see whether that's successful.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
I kind of did, and she kind of hit on that. Because we were talking about it being kind of overdeveloped. Isn't it true for being underdeveloped too? Because I thought it was for the map, okay, 25 and coverage or 25 speed, that's one spot, but the whole rest of that map is underserved. Right. But you can't get money for that because it's already showing that it.
Yeah, there's some granularity to all of that I'm not as familiar with. But essentially this mapping exercise was to identify those. In my report, the only ones that FastTrack objected to or protested or whatever the term is, were ones in which the map showed it was underserved when it wasn't. Okay. Right? For FastTrack purposes. Yeah. There were other areas which I'm sure were underserved and FastTrack said yes, okay, we agree with that, right? And there were probably other ISPs that then, other than FastTrack, that said, wait a second, you say it's adequately served, we say it's not, right? But there's a definition of what that underserved and adequately served is, and I don't have that detail. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, Kirsten?
Yeah, Tim, what's SB 107? You say LPA is going to be using SB 107 for to assist the fiber route.
The SB 107 is a state law. It was passed a few years ago that allows electric utility like LPEA to offer their electric right of way as a commercial use for broadband. We've talked about this numerous times in the past, but Graham, you're the legal guy. Was that a good explanation of what?
Yes.
What I just did?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a statute that basically allows electric cooperatives specifically to convert their electric easements into electric / telecommunications easements.
Super, thank you. I wasn't familiar with the number itself. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Any other FastTrack questions?
This last, maybe one of the last chances.
We'll give you another one, but make sure that the questions can be answered. Next report, CREA.
Yeah, great. There was not a CRA board meeting since our last board meeting, so you will not find a CRA report in this board packet. Our next meeting for the fall will be on October 28th during the Energy Innovation Summit again. So I'm looking forward to that. And there's, it's not the legislative season, so there's no real updates there. CRA is kind of cruising right now. Any questions or comments or anything to take back to the state? Any progress on the statewide net metering discussion? Not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Any other questions for Holly related to CRE? Or anything else? Okay, there you go. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, sorry,
Even though it's not legislative season, during this period, those legislators meet with constituents and start building bills for introduction. And if you get any insight into any of those that you think are relevant, please feel free to share.
Absolutely, yeah, and I know that Tim Coleman is up on Capitol Hill virtually every day. Net metering is definitely, community choice aggregation is still being looked at. So is the consumer protections piece that they're pretty concerned of because they're looking at trying to rope in utilities into that. So how that would impact us in the future is definitely on the radar to evaluate. So those are the big ones that I've heard of. So
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, onward, the next report is for Western United. David, are you ready for us?
Yes, so I included the sales and financial report for September in everybody's package. Sales is 9.8% below last year's, and then the monthly is 12.8% lower. And then also, which means the net margin is 4.7% below. But the positive is they actually have a 44% backlog, which is an incoming rates, which is a good sign. And they did have that issue of having too much stock as far as stock overturn, and that has leveled off. And then they had their September 14th biannual open house with 200 attendees participating. And the next meeting is October 27th. And I'd like to say thank you to my alternate, Kirsten, for filling in for me this coming October. The report is in the package, but if there's any questions, I'll attempt to answer them now.
Anything for David and Western United? Tim, that's a question.
Just a quick one. It says fiscal 24, so are they already in the fiscal 2024 year?
Yeah, they're
What is
yes.
there?
Yeah, it closed September 30th.
right.
So that was the first quarter closed. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kirsten.
I thought they were June. They're October.
In June,
September closed their first quarter, so
Yeah.
June to
Yeah.
September.
Fiscal year starts June.
Yeah, so June it's closed. The first quarter has closed, the 2024. So when we had the fish fry, that was the end of the year closeout also that they gave.
Okay, I don't see any other questions here. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Brings us to the end of the agenda. I do see at the adjournment note here, I see a click for the sign-in sheet. So it's my opportunity to remind everybody to make sure they get signed in and put their info in there. It makes Janelle's life easier, and make sure you get your director feed. Joe.
Ted, I just have a couple questions on our quarterly consultant contractor report. We put a headline on there what that is, because I thought at first it was the United, Western United, but I'm on 85-104.
Okay.
It's a long list of people we pay. And so I'd like to just point out we've spent $620,000 on free training, which seems to be on track. That's great. Question on the locating services. So is that a really highly specialized sort of operation to do that? And is that why it's contracted out mainly, or?
Is that are you asking about the 1080-degree locating services?
Yeah, I didn't want to mention their name. Okay,
I
yeah,
think it's okay because we're not going to mention the pricing.
okay,
Jerry. Yeah.
okay.
The workload is unbelievable right now. The emergency rotates and just normal scheduled rotates. And they use a team of 4 people and they're running almost 7 days a week on emergency rotates reports are going by us.
And so any kind of construction project, building, road.
Anytime anybody calls 811.
Okay, okay. And then, a question, the whole attachment audit. We talked about that one, that's been completed, and I just wonder if there's, I can't remember what I asked about it last quarter, but I know that was kind of a big deal that you guys were looking at. Anyway.
Gary, so you speak up just so that they can hear, please. You got to talk to the owl pretty loud.
So, we did complete the audit. We did find, more attachments than we had recorded. And right now we are still in a little bit of the verification process. We've had some pushback from some companies, and so we're just trying to verify it and work with them. They did a really good job, and now we feel comfortable moving forward with future attachments. And it's been a lot of work, but we're starting to iron out that whole process.
And the pushback from companies is, what are they pushing back against?
Just verifying that they actually are on the pole.
Oh,
and it's gonna be a lengthy process. Just proving that, yes, they are on that pole. So we have 40,000 poles out there, so it's gonna take a little while.
There's some financial implications too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's our full attachment, payments that we receive for them are basic per attachment and stuff like that. So yeah, this is important information.
Is it significant? Is it, I don't know, $1 million a year or any way to say?
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I think it's.
Well, the next year's budget for other revenue is just shy. Well, I assume that's good.
Just shy of $1 million.
Well,
I don't know.
That's
Oh, I'm sorry.
I assume is the attachment.
We can dig in and see.
Oh, that's okay. I was just.
On this from the.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about it. I think that would be a really good thing that we should break out in this budget and understand and continue to track. Because as we enter into more broadband partnerships, if you will, and so forth, understanding that revenue and how we might utilize that to actually help meet our strategic goal would be a useful thing. And at the moment we have, as a board, no visibility as to what that revenue is, what that cost is, and what we can use that, how we can utilize that for good revenues. I would make that. Break that out and track it, perhaps even on a quarterly basis.
Graham, we're not allowed to profit on that, are we?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not regulated by the FCC the way investor-owned utilities are for attachments, so theoretically, we can charge what we want, but if you start charging something that's different from the FCC cost recovery rate, it's gonna be a real big deal, right? So basically, our full attachment rates are designed around cost recovery and not income generation, and they kind of have to be, right? We try as much as we can to recover absolutely every penny that it costs us so that our members aren't underwriting full attachments for for-profit telecommunications companies, but if we start to sort of view this as a market markup where we're making money off of it, these guys have a lot of lobbying power where they're gonna try and get us. And that it's a constant, like every single day.
US, it happened in the Northwest, they got sued, it happens everywhere.
I'm not necessarily, don't misconstrue what I'm saying, I'm not suggesting a margin here. But if we have to add a headcount, that's a cost that we should recover.
Yeah.
And if that headcount allows more of these to go through, as a benefit to our members, that's what I'm looking at, right? It is cost recovery, I'm not suggesting we want to take a margin.
Yeah, I'm writing a note to Patrick to see if we can break up these costs and see what we can find. I mean, it's good for us to know too.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we have it, it's just, to your point, data analytics. we
Yeah,
should-
it's not visible, so we don't look at it.
Right.
And we could.
All right, yeah, what do you have?
I would just like to offer some kudos to Emily Misseldine and John Kenny for that heat pump webinar yesterday.
Great.
I caught about the first half of it. I learned something out of it. I mean, they did a good job.
Thank you for that, we'll pass that on, Daniel. Dan's huge.
Really cool. I was reading Kristen's report about the NRECA regional meetings. And Kirsten, I think it sounds like you went to a changing risk environment requires extraordinary action, that particular talk. And I mean, we see that there's so much complexity and there's so many different types of risks involved with that. What are any relevant takeaways about that we could learn from here or should take into consideration at our level?
Rachel, would you give me a little time to answer that and not have me answer that right now? Because there were some takeaways. It was a good talk and I don't remember diddly at the moment.
You got it.
Okay, I'll get it out to you guys. Thank you so much for the question. I appreciate it. I'm glad somebody read it.
Wait, anything else before we wrap up? Well done, everybody, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Wow, you said that.